Peanuts! Peanuts!
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Bat Around. I'm here for the start of the show this week, just barely thanks to traffic. I gotta get better at this, man. My time management when it comes to getting to this studio, because I don't think Cromwell Bridge Road is the worst. It's the worst road out there. Road. Nobody wants to do the speed limit. But hello, hi, I'm Paul Valley. He's Zach Goodman. We're here with another installment of the Bat Around on a dreary, gloomy, not really raining, but dreary, gloomy Saturday. At least it's warm out.
I believe it's supposed to rain the rest of the day. Am I wrong? Or I heard that like 2 days ago.
I hope to hell not. I have a baseball game
tomorrow.
Do you really?
And
nah, man, it's
no, not gonna rain.
The highest.
That's good. I'm happy about that.
The highest percentage chance of rain the rest of the day is 39% at 5 p.m.
Okay, all right.
Everything
nice.
else is in the teens.
Good.
So,
I like to hear it.
Hopefully.
How's your baseball team doing this year?
We are 1-1-1.
Okay.
So the first game, we had a lead, and it's against a team that we never beat, the Astros. It's against the team.
They're stealing your signs.
Probably. It's actually the team that I play with down in Florida.
Okay.
And we lose to them by 1 run every game.
Wow.
We lose them by the first game. I went 2 for 4. I drove in a couple of runs. I scored a couple of runs, a couple of stolen bases. I pitched two shutout innings.
Okay.
I've only given up 1 run in 8 innings this year. But I pitched 2 shutout innings, but our other pitcher kind of lost his control in the 6th inning.
Okay.
And so we ended up losing that game 6-5. We won our second game. I picked up the save in our second game, a scoreless 9th.
Jorge Lopez.
In our third game, we were down 11-1. They brought me in to pitch with 1 out in the 4th inning. I went 5 innings, 1 run on 2 hits with 5 strikeouts, no walk. I was on it. I was in a zone.
Nice. Love it.
We were down 11-1, and we came back and we tied the game 12-12.
Wow.
We scored 5 runs in the 9th inning. And then they wouldn't let us go to extra innings because there's a time limit because the field's used. But so 1-1-1, we have a good team, man. If the other pitcher and I continue pitching like this, we'll be okay. Anyway,
glad to hear it.
That's not the important thing. The important thing is that the Orioles played a baseball game last night and they lost.
They did,
and they went 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position. Now I was at work, so I was looking up when I could. It sucks that I have to work on Friday nights. And I have to miss the game before the freaking show. That's why I like the West Coast games, because I work and then I don't have to miss the games. Although I am off next Friday because the pup comes home next Friday.
Right.
So I took off. And we'll get to this in a second, but if Adley Rutschman doesn't debut on Monday, he's going to debut on Friday, and we might have to go to that game.
Let's do it.
Tell Laura,
right,
I'm sorry, babe, I got to be there for the Bat Around. Anyway, speaking of the Bat Around, today's show is brought to you by your local Toyota dealers. Make the most out of every day in a Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today. For today's show, Stan the Fan Charles is going to join us at about 10:25. Zach's going to sound off on Adley Rutschman. We're going to sound off on Adley Rutschman a lot today. And then at 11 o'clock from MLBpipeline.com, we're going to have Sam Dykstra. He was there for the Pipeline game of the month on Thursday between Norfolk and Memphis. So he got to see up close Grayson Rodriguez and Adley Rutschman and Nick Gordon. We're not going to talk about Nick Gordon because who the hell cares about Nick Gordon here in Baltimore?
Matthew Liberatore as well was in that game.
I don't care about him. He's not an Orioles prospect.
He's a good player.
Who cares? He's not an Orioles prospect.
He's a really good pitcher. All right.
Whatever, man. He's not.
That was part of the appeal of that game. I did watch that game, actually. Good game.
I was here. We're not going to talk to him about anybody other than Orioles players and some draft prospects and who he thinks the Orioles might take number 1 overall, and some other prospects on the Orioles that played in this game but maybe aren't on people's radar as much as they should be. And then we're going to close things out with Orioles banter and take to rake, which, by the way, I have not compiled the stats.
I get to work on that.
And my guy, Ryan Mountcastle, didn't play the last half of the week because of the forearm strain to put him on the injured list. So we're going to get to all of that and more here on the Bat Around. Getting back to last night's game. So I'm watching, and I look in the first inning, and the Orioles have runners on first and second with nobody out. They don't score. They have runners on first and second with 2 outs. I don't know if they had it with 1 out or not. In the second inning, they don't score. They get back-to-back home runs from Trey Mancini and Anthony Santander in the 8th inning. Then they load the bases. I think with 1 out, and they don't score again. And then they load the bases in the 9th inning with, okay, so they get first and second with nobody out in the 9th inning. Santander strikes out. Then Nevin walks. So the base is loaded with 1 out. They pinch hit Ramon Arias, who hasn't played in a week.
Right.
And he strikes out. And it wasn't even a competitive
and he wasn't performing well before he didn't play for the week.
It just was not a competitive bat. It was 3 pitches, 3 strikes, get the hell out of the batter's box. And then they, with the bases loaded, they had Austin Hayes pinch running, but it didn't matter. You could have had, Byron Buxton out there at second base, and it didn't matter because then Rylan Bannon comes up and with a 1-1 count, takes a fastball on the inner third that should be right in any right-handed hitter's wheelhouse, and he just watches it. And maybe he's looking for something else, and I get that. It happens to me. But he watches it, strike 2, and then the next pitch is a 58-foot breaking ball.
Yeah.
That he offers at, and it just the bat went too far. He strikes out. The game's over. Much ado about nothing. Orioles lose a game 4-2, and this is a game 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position, 14 batters left on base, and this is a game where you miss Austin Hayes and Ryan Mountcastle and a healthy Ramon Arias, because if Ramon Arias is like we talked about this on the show before, his hard hit rate and line drive rate are up from last year. Strikeout rate is down. He's just hit into some bad luck. If those 3 guys are healthy and in your lineup, that game probably goes differently. You have base runners all night long, and you couldn't bring them home. But those 3 guys in the lineup, things are probably different.
Arguably, you look at Austin Hayes as the best hitter so far of the team this year. I mean, Cedric Mullins has performed well, but Austin Hayes has performed above reasonable expectation. And then, of course, when you remove him and Mountcastle from the lineup, where there's 2 of your 3 best hitters immediately removed, you're not going to be as competitive as you would have been previously. So it doesn't surprise me the Orioles had a rough offensive night. There are a lot of guys in this lineup. You look up and down at the averages and the OPSs and the on-base percentages and all the stats, and you look at it, and Nevin's hitting 147. Odor's hitting 195. Chirinos is hitting 141. When you remove guys that are actually performing at the top of their game, like Mountcastle and Austin Hayes, and even Mountcastle hasn't been maybe even what he was last year at this point.
Well, he's actually doing better at this point. Than
Is he? Okay, fair enough.
You remember he hit like
190. But I'm saying like as the season totals from 2021, he hasn't really reached that level yet where we expected him to be. But he's been performing fine, and he's not having a down year by any means.
And the bats come on in the last week, and it sucks that the bats come on, and he's just got this forearm pain that just gets increasingly worse on every swing, on every throw.
Right. So when you remove these guys, I mean, you can't really expect to have a great offensive night. And then Ramon Arias, obviously being out, hurts your cause again. Rylan Bannon, I mean, we can talk about the debut a little bit. I think that it's not really too big of a deal. Maybe the biggest part about it is that he is the first player from the Manny Machado trade, except for Breivik Valera, because no one cares about Breivik Valera, to actually make his debut as a position player for the Orioles. We've seen Dean Kramer a lot, obviously. Zach Pop, who was also in that trade, is down there in Miami. But this is the first position player.
Zach Pop's been demoted.
He actually is back in AAA right now. But Rylan Bannon, it doesn't excite me, but it is notable that he is that guy who finally made it from the Manny Machado trade at 26 years old, and 5 seasons after he was traded.
He was in his first year of pro ball when he got traded.
Right. So
and he had 22 home runs that year. Now, look, it's in the Pacific Coast League.
Yes,
so you take
which
that with a grain of salt. But this is a guy that last year hit 10 home runs. Look, he got hurt at the beginning of the year and never really bounced back from that. He had a really nice stretch.
Right.
Middle of the season where he hit 10 home runs in 10 games. We had him on the show right in the middle of that stretch, or at the tail end of that stretch.
Yeah.
Look, I look at Rylan Bannon, and maybe this is a capable guy. He's only 5'8", but Jose Altuve is 5'5".
Sure.
You know what I mean?
It's not really a height thing for me. It's more of just if you look at the offensive numbers, especially at the higher levels, they haven't been exactly great. So I don't have great expectations for what Bannon's going to do. But if Bannon is a guy who can play a solid third base and give you decent enough defense and still hit 230 around there, maybe hit you 10 home runs this year, I'd be perfectly fine with that. I don't think that's a terrible outcome from him. But you need other guys in this lineup to supplement the glove-first guys like a Bannon. You need guys like that aren't Robinson Chirinos hitting 141. And you need guys like Ryan Mountcastle and Austin Hayes in this lineup, and when you remove them, you're certainly going to be off to a worse start in any game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's look, when you got Chris Owings in the lineup every day.
Right, exactly.
You've got Robinson Chirinos hitting 140
Right.
playing every day. And then when he's not playing, Anthony Bemboom, who's hitting 141
Right.
playing every other day.
One combined home run.
Yeah, guys, and that home run came 2 days ago.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Guys, what do we expect here?
Exactly.
You know, and Eduardo Rodriguez is a capable pitcher.
Yes.
Look, the Orioles had opportunity after opportunity, but when those opportunities come up, and it's four guys like Bemboom and Chirinos and Chris Owings and Rylan Bannon and Tyler Nevin, nothing against those guys.
Right.
But none of them are established big league players who you can count on.
Well, right after your top four, you've got Nevin, Odor, Bannon, Chirinos, Owings.
Yeah. What do you expect there?
Right. I mean, you got 3 combined hits out of all of those guys.
Yeah. And the fact that you got 3 combined hits is actually surprising.
That is surprising, right?
You know
and
what I mean?
Owings was one of them, shockingly.
Yeah. Chris Owings, somehow, Chris Owings and Rougned Odor, man, you, when everybody gets healthy again, I'd rather keep Bannon and Nevin here and just get rid of those guys.
100%.
And just get rid of, I don't need to see anything else from Chris Owings and Rougned Odor. To me, they're cooked. They're absolutely done.
I agree.
So I don't need to see anything else from them. Jordan Lyles, 5 2/3 innings pitched. He was pitching well, and then the wheels kind of fell off.
Right. And the same thing in the last outing.
In the 6th inning. Didn't he only give up 2 runs the last outing,
He
though?
gave up 3, I believe.
I think it was 2.
I was at the game. I want to say he pitched 7 1/3.
And he gave up.
Was it?
Maybe
I think it was 3.
I think it was 4 runs, 3 earned.
Okay. Oh yeah, you're right. You're correct.
I think it was 4 runs, 3 earned. And look, he's doing exactly what we told you he was going to do.
Yeah,
he's gonna give you 2 or 3 really good starts, and then he's gonna have a clunker.
Sure.
Last night was kind of in between the two. Right. It was good until it was a clunker.
Yeah.
But look, if he pitches into the 6th inning and gives up 4 runs, I feel like you should be able to win this game. And again, it goes back to how badly you're hurting missing those 3 guys in Hayes, Urias, and Mountcastle. Right. In the middle of your lineup. So. I'm not going to hate on the bullpen was lights out again.
Yeah.
They did exactly what they needed to do, and that they've been doing that all year. I mean, that game on Thursday, that was honestly the game on Thursday was probably one of the most impressive wins of the year. When you think about the fact that they had 1 bench player and it was Robinson Chirinos,
right,
and then on top of that, they had
It was a great game. They just came out and they pitched so unbelievably
well. It was a
well in
bullpen
that
game.
Right.
You get 2 1/3 out of Brian Baker,
Baker.
no runs, 3 Ks. You get 2 2/3 out of Keegan Aiken, no runs, 4 Ks. I mean, that's 5 innings and 7 strikeouts from your 2 relievers.
Right.
And then the rest of the game, I mean, you only give up 2 runs in that game. It was an impressive freaking victory.
Agreed.
Especially now, look, the Cardinals have lost 5 of 6. They're kind of reeling right now, but don't be mistaken. That's a good baseball.
It's a good baseball team.
That's
100%.
And they're going to get going here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're going to get going. I mean, this is a team that won 19 games in a row last year, 17 games in a row in September to put themselves in the playoffs. This is a good baseball team.
They're always good, always competitive.
Yeah,
always.
Playoffs 8 of the last 11 years. They're going to get back to, and look, the Orioles series wins here. Look, this is the first time since 2017 that they've gone 4 series without a series loss.
There you go.
You know,
That's the big difference.
They did it from August 21st to September 3rd, where they won or split 4 straight series, and before that, the beginning of that 2017 season when they either won or split each of their first 7 series. So you're talking 5 years, 6 seasons since they last did what they're doing right now, and they could go out there and win today and win tomorrow and have a 5th straight non-losing series. I don't anticipate it because of what they're kind of up against and the fact that we're clamoring right now to have Richie Martin be part of the team. That's how bad Chris Owings and Rougned Odor.
I'm not clamoring for Richie Martin. I can tell you that.
I mean, but the way he's hitting about 280 down in Norfolk, and
big gap,
and he's in a 9 for 22 streak right now. And the way he was hitting in spring training,
pass. I'm gonna pass,
bro. It's a pass for me too. But when you look at Richie Martin, or Chris Owings, Rougned Odor. Give me Richie Martin. He ain't Gunnar Henderson. He ain't Jordan Westburg. He ain't even Joey Ortiz. But they're not ready yet.
I'll take him over Owings. I don't know about Odor. Odor has been...
Dude, Odor has been
horrible.
He's been... There's not a word to describe
Richie Martin, to be fair, has never had one good season in Major League Baseball, or really had one even good stretch in Major League Baseball.
He hit 286 the second half of 2019.
Did he?
Yeah. He had a... or maybe not the second half, but the last 2 months. He had a nice stretch there. And look, Rougned Odor isn't going to have a stretch like that.
No.
And the defense has been, he's got a great glove. No, the hell he doesn't. He's on pace for over 30 errors this year.
Oh, yeah. Rougned Odor is not a good defender. No, not at all.
And maybe he used to be, and maybe he can, and he still can give you that flashy play every now and again. It's weird that he's 28 years old. Like, he feels like he's been in the league for 15 years.
Yeah.
He's 28 years old.
Yeah.
And his career's over, in my opinion. I don't think there's a role for him anywhere. And the fact that they're still, as well as the Orioles have been playing, and the fact that Rougned Odor still has a role on this team, it blows my mind. And now what really blows my mind is the handling of Adley Rutschman. And let's get into this a little bit here. Because Dan Connolly, and look, this is nothing against Dan. I love Dan. Dan and I have known each other for a long time.
Yep.
And he's been on the show. He's a friend of the show. He's doing his job with the article that he wrote in The Athletic the other day. Now, he wrote, I wouldn't bet money that Adley Rutschman is going to debut on Monday because they want him to catch 5 times in a week, catch back-to-back games, and they want to make sure that arm is fully healthy. And maybe to a lesser extent, they want him to put up better offensive numbers. And he even alluded to the fact that, look, he hit 312 in 43 games at Norfolk last year. And I look at it, and I'm like, look, he's been playing for 3 weeks.
Right.
All right, he's been playing for 3 weeks. These other guys got 3 weeks of spring training games. He's good to go. 3 hits the last 2 games, including his first home run of the year. He's hitting 347 in the 3 weeks that he's been on this rehab assignment.
Right.
Your catchers are batting 140 and 141 with 1 home run and 5 RBIs.
Right.
So look, I get it. You don't rush a prospect. You don't rush a prospect.
You don't rush.
You don't rush a prospect.
That's a good one.
Because you have some players that are playing poorly.
Yeah.
But this isn't rushing him.
I was going to say, let me make this exceptionally clear. They have not rushed Adley Rutschman in one sense of anything.
Exactly. So Dan Connolly, as much as I respect him and I know he's just doing his job and this is nothing against him, the arguments for why Rutschman should stay down there are falling on deaf ears.
There's no argument to be made.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time. And the fact that you haven't announced it yet is mind-blowing to me.
I'm going to talk about that and sounding off a little bit.
He's not debuting in 3 weeks. He's debuting this week.
Right.
I would put my life savings, which is all about 37 cents in a Whopper from Burger King. But I would put my life savings on the fact that Rutschman's going to debut this week.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
And if he's going to debut Friday, why not debut on Monday? And have that playoff atmosphere against the freaking New York Yankees.
I can't tell you how annoyed it makes me that your catchers are batting 140, but you continue to, and I get it. You know, you don't want to re-injure Rutschman, and there's so much risk there. I guess there is. I don't know how serious tricep injuries are. I've never really seen that with catchers, and I don't really know the back, so I'm not a doctor.
He didn't tear it or anything like that. He strained it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that bad to me. It never really did. And the fact that he was out way longer than they projected initially anyway tells me that this is time. Just bring him up. Stop it, right? Like we've been waiting for this since 2019.
And not just the fact he's been playing for 3 weeks and he's hitting 347 in those 3 weeks. He was playing in extended spring training.
Right.
So,
and for anyone who says he's not playing well at Norfolk, he's played 6 games, guys. Like it's 6 games. It's 20 at bats. That's a tiny sample size.
I mean,
like,
it's 7 games now.
He
after
hit,
last night.
You're correct. Baseball Reference doesn't update.
It's got to be updated by now.
I think they do it at like 12 o'clock every day, but I could be wrong.
But he's caught back-to-back games.
Right.
Have him catch again today.
Yes.
Announce after the game that he's debuting on Monday. Give him tomorrow off, and let's get this thing going.
Right.
This is the number 1 overall prospect in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the number 1 overall prospect in baseball.
Yeah.
Some people think other guys have passed him, but he's been for a while now. Number 1 prospect in baseball, number 1 and number 2. Bobby Witt Jr., who was drafted to pick after him, is in the major leagues right now.
Right.
Adam Vaughn, who was drafted 2 picks after him, has been in the major leagues now. This is his 2nd season. Spencer Torkelson, who was number 1 overall pick in the draft in 2020, is in the big leagues right now. Now, look, all those guys are struggling.
Yeah.
I get that. But there's no reason that Adley Rutschman shouldn't be here right now.
No.
And
if he struggles, it's still going to be better than 140. I'm going to tell you that right now.
If he struggles, if he's hitting 210, It's 70 points higher
Right.
than what you're getting from your catchers right now.
Not only that, there was a stat I saw posted on Twitter the other day from Baseball Savant where it was like the catching defensive runs saved, but also had something to do with framing, and had Robinson Chirinos ranked as the worst framer in baseball. So that's another, even if Rutschman doesn't hit right off the bat, the guy's a great defender. We know that he's most likely going to win a Gold Glove at some point in his career because the guy can, he can receive, he can block, he can do it all behind the plate. Even if Adley Rutschman is hitting 230 and playing great defense, that's way better than what the Orioles have
almost
now.
100 points higher than what you're getting
right
now.
I mean, and I don't expect Rutschman to hit better than that. I think, out of the first maybe 2 months, I think he'll probably hit like 230, 240.
Adley Rutschman's one of those guys, man, that he's going to homer in his first game.
He probably will.
Or he's going to double
Yeah.
to the gap in a big situation. He's one of those guys. And look, he has done nothing to prove that he's going to be a star at the big league level.
Not yet.
Except for the fact that he's proven to be a star at the minor league level.
Yeah.
And everybody that sees him play raves about him on both sides of the field. Right? So he's going to be one of those guys who, in his first game, is going to get a big hit.
I'm sure he will.
You know, and I'd put money on that too, that he's going to double or he's going to homer
Probably.
or he's going to have a 2-hit game in his first game. I have no doubts about that with Adley Rutschman. The time is now.
It is.
Get him here.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, and we talked about this on Glenn Clark Radio all week. Even if he's not playing on Monday, if he's not debuting on Monday, even if that's the case, let us know.
Right.
Because people have been talking about May 16th for 3 freaking weeks.
Right.
You know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, look, and we talked about this, if you're not telling people because you want to sell as many tickets for Monday and then not have him play,
Right.
and then say he's going to debut on Friday so you get to sell even more tickets, that's shiesty.
Yeah.
That's shiesty, and it goes to show everything that people have been saying about the Orioles.
Yeah.
Some announcement about Adley Rutschman, one way or the other,
Yeah.
needs to have been made by now. It's Saturday. People are expecting the
I agree.
debut in 2 days. Something needs to have been said by now.
I agree. I was going to talk about it in my sounding off. I'm going to change that and talk about it real quick right now.
Why?
Well, because you already just that's it. I mean, that's what I was going to talk about to a pretty good extent.
I told you that we were going to do this.
Yeah, I know.
And you said you're going to talk about
I'll
the
be
marketing.
fine.
You can still sound off about marketing.
Well, I think you just covered it. That the Orioles, this is kind of the way people have felt about them, and you use the word shiesty, and I think that's maybe what the people's perception of them might be in a few days if Rutschman's debut hasn't been announced. They got to announce this. They got to let people know.
One way or the other.
They got to let people know, and there are a lot of fans that are going to buy tickets immediately the minute you announce it. So why aren't you doing it? You're missing out on a massive financial opportunity here. Why not? Like what do you have to lose at this point? The Orioles know.
Yeah.
I guarantee you they know. They've picked the date. They probably picked it 2 weeks ago. I mean, they know. Like this is not some big secret like, oh, let's see where Rutschman is. Rutschman's 24 years old. He hit, 317 in Norfolk last year, you said?
312.
312. The guy's ready to go.
He got
has
better when he got to Norfolk.
I almost guarantee you this. If Rutschman had come up in the majors right after he was drafted, like say he had no time in the minors, I bet Rutschman easily could have held his own, especially as a defender.
There were people who were saying in 2020 that Adley Rutschman should have been the Orioles opening day catcher.
He probably should have been, but we know how service time works and the manipulation of that. And whether the Orioles did it intentionally or not, I'm not going to comment on that. But I just will say that, he's 24 years old. And that's getting somewhat up there for a guy who was drafted number 1 overall. A lot of these number 1 overall picks, like Torkelson, make their debuts much earlier. And that, to me, is just that's where the frustrating part is with the Orioles and why Rutschman isn't in the big leagues yet. I get it. It's because of the injury. But now's the time. This is the week. Let's announce it. Let's get this over with. Like, it's time.
Yeah, and the thing is, you're watching him. Go ahead. You're watching him struggle this past week in Norfolk. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, you got to go out and do something tonight. You got to go out and do something tonight to prove that you're ready. What does he do? He goes out there, he goes 2 for 4, gets a bases-loaded walk in the 9th inning to kind of be like, guys, I belong there. Now, look, he didn't go 2 for 4 with a double and a home run and 3 RBIs, but 2 for 4. When was the last time Chirinos or Bemboom went 2 for 4 and were on base 3 times, scored a couple of runs and an RBI? It hasn't happened because they're not any good. And look, I knew what we were getting with Robinson Chirinos. We knew it, right? We knew that this was a guy who was past his prime, who was going to come in and handle a pitch. And the pitching staff has been good with him.
Statistically, though, he's the worst framer in baseball.
But I don't really give a crap about framing anymore. Because
it's a big part of receiving, though.
It is, but how long is it going to be? Because they're going to go to robot arms at some point.
He passes the eye test for me. I'll say that.
But he's better than anything we've had in 3 or 4 years here.
Agreed.
Right? And so I knew what we were getting in Robinson Chirinos. I didn't expect him to be 140 bad. I expected maybe to hit 210. But 140 and Ben Boom, I mean, that's kind of what you expected from him.
I didn't even expect Ben Boom to hit 140.
Yeah, that's a surprise for me. What are we waiting for? With that in mind, let's grab Stan. He's on the line with us. Good morning, Stan. How are you today?
Good, guys. How you doing?
We're doing well. We're talking about Adley Rutschman. And Stan, from my standpoint, what are we waiting for? It's time to get this guy here.
Well, I'm sure we're going to see him pretty soon. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be this week or next week. You know, I think in the next 2 weeks we'll see him. You know, most likely it'll be sometime, I think, during this homestand coming up.
I would imagine it would be, but they go on the road the week after this one, so I can't imagine they would.
Well, that's generally what you do in the schedule. You are home for 6 or 9 games, and then you go on the road for 6 or 9 games.
Yeah, we know that, Stan. But you said you expect to see him in the next 2 weeks. I expect to see him this week. Otherwise, you're waiting 3 weeks till they get home again because they're not debuting him on the road.
They're not debuting him where?
On the road. They're going to do it. They're going to do it.
I mean, it doesn't make much sense to debut him on the road, but you know, I'm not going to get that exercised about him. They've got this plan that they want him to be able to play back-to-back games catching. You know, and that seems like a you know, it might seem ridiculous to us, but it seems like a fairly low bar that he needs to reach before they're willing to bring him to the majors.
Well, and he has called back-to-back games. He called last night and he called the day before in the afternoon game.
Okay, then he's getting real close.
Yeah, I would expect to see him catch again. My theory, Stan, is that he should catch again today, and then they give him the day off tomorrow and announce when he's debuting. At this point, Stan, I guess my whole point with the whole thing is even if he's not debuting on Monday, that's fine. But people have been talking about Monday as the date for 3 weeks now, and the Orioles know this. And at some point, I feel like they need to tell the fan base one way or the other, hey, he's coming up this week, but it's not going to be Monday. Or, hey, he's coming up this week, and it's going to be Monday. Either way, I feel like they owe that to their fan base.
You know, I don't think that's of any great consequence one way or the other. They haven't looked like they're that worried about the fans in terms of the product they've put out there. They have a game plan, and that's what they're adhering to.
Stan, since you often participate in the press conferences with Mike Elias and Brandon Hyde and some of the bigger guys there, I did hear a rumor that Mike Elias had a press conference coming up. Do you know when that is? And do you think that he could implicate?
I haven't heard anything about it.
Okay, gotcha.
But it would not surprise me if it's in the next day or two, and it's about exactly what you guys are talking about right now.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that next
I just haven't heard anything. I haven't been that close to the vine this year.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, well, despite not having Adley Rutschman on the roster, Stan, the Orioles have been playing some solid baseball. They've won or split 4 straight series for the first time since 2017. Now, look, they've got some injuries. Mountcastle, Arias, and Austin Hayes were not in the lineup last night. Mountcastle was the only one on the IL, and that was obvious based on how they performed with runners on base and only scoring 2 runs last night. But are we right to be enthused about this team right now? I mean, 14-19 is not a great record, but when you look at the way they've been playing and how they got to that 14-9 record after starting 1-5 this year, they're playing some solid baseball right now.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think this year is about measuring wins and losses. I don't expect all of a sudden them to jump from, what they win, 55 games last year?
52
games last year. I didn't expect them to jump to 75 wins this year.
No, of course not.
But whatever the number isn't the quality of baseball we're seeing significantly better and more interesting and more entertaining than what we've seen the last couple of years?
Oh, it absolutely.
I mean, the 2020 was a little bit of a fluke. They played fairly solid baseball, but that's why you play 162 games. is to show what you're really made of, and they weren't made of much that year because they came back last year with a thud. They're playing a lot better baseball, and I credit the pitching mostly, but they're starting to be some light at the end of the tunnel. It's just really unfortunate that they've got hit with this little spate of injuries right now. And the one that's most frustrating is Hayes. I don't know what in the world he was thinking about diving head first
he had no
in the
shot
first
getting
base.
there.
That was idiotic.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I look at it like I look at, and he's not the same player, but I look at it like I look at Bryce Harper at the beginning of his career, where he's playing on a team where like he's one of the top guys, and he wants to play gritty and he wants to play hard and help do anything he can to help his team win. Yeah. And then like you saw him run face first into a wall, and you saw him smack his bat on a wall and it bounces back and hits him in the face and gives him a black eye, and you realize there's a time and place for that kind of intensity, and it's not when you have no shot getting into first base safely, even on a slide. And this is one of those things where maybe Austin Hayes is going to kind of learn a little bit. Hopefully, it's one of those things where he's going to kind of learn a little bit that, like, there's a time and place, and that ain't it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, you do want your player hustling all out, but that idea that somehow diving hand first in the first base when you know that the pitcher is going to be covering it was like as soon as I saw him horizontal to the ground, I said, oh my God, what is he doing?
Yeah, and we've seen him. He missed out on the 2018 season because in spring training he slid headfirst into second base and broke his thumb.
Right.
We've seen this before, and you can break your thumb, you can separate your shoulder, you can get your hand stepped on, which was the case.
There's virtually nothing good that happens when a guy dives in the first base.
And it's been statistically proven that you're faster running through the base than you are diving for it. And I get it, but he needs to know when and where to do that. And look, he stayed in the game, and he came.
Part of that is the learning process, and I'm sure the next time, he has certain instincts that are hard to break. Instincts.
Right.
But I'm sure that the pain he's going through now of missing time and hurting his ball club, you hope that just settles into his head. And the next time he won't do something so foolish.
Especially,
I hate to call it stupid because Austin Hayes isn't a stupid guy.
No, he's not.
It's just foolish.
Yeah,
it's foolish.
It is, and he would probably acknowledge that too. Especially when he's been the key cog in this offense the last 3 weeks, and he knows his team needs him. And it was never more evident than last night when they go 1 for 12 runners in scoring position and leave 14 guys on base. Never more evident.
Well, they've lost 3 right-handed bats over the course of like 3 or 4 days, and nothing. Look, I don't even know what the Urias injury is, but it's the same one we've talked about. And when we say he's not durable enough, he just is not a guy that's ever going to play more than say 70, 80 games in a season tops.
Right, and you look at these players and you look at how they factor in. And Ramon Urias, as much as we do like his bat and he's hit into some bad luck this year, he's got to stay on the field. And he hasn't. And until he can prove that, he doesn't look like a piece for this team moving forward. Now, somebody who does look like a piece for this team moving forward is Jorge Mateo.
Shortstop.
Jorge Mateo.
The shortstop. Yeah.
He is turning some heads, man. I think he's tied for the Major League lead with 10 stolen bases. He seems to be getting on base and doing things with his legs. His defense looks like it's getting better every day. Is he putting himself in position to factor into the future of this ball club?
There's no question about it. There's no question about it. And he's first of all, he's putting himself and his family in a lot better position to be an earner. And whether or not he's surpassed in the next year or two by a Gunnar Henderson or somebody, some combination of infielders that they think are better, it doesn't matter because what he's doing is also enhancing his value. And that's something that a ball club can always use when it's trying to get better, is use something of value to get something you need.
It surprises me. I'm looking at the numbers with Mateo, and his OPS is only 660. But he has 10 stolen bases, which is double what he had in the exact amount of games last year with Baltimore. He had 32 games, 5, 32 games in 10, and he had only 10 in 89 games total with the San Diego Padres. So Do you think the Orioles?
Zach, what's his on-base percentage?
His on-base percentage is .282, so not great. But that
Okay.
I think we know Mateo is kind of one of those typical guys who's going to strike out a lot and walk a little bit less. But does it surprise you that the stolen bases are up by double? Do you think the Orioles maybe found something with his his movements on the base paths or helped him out with his instincts, or is there anything they could have done coaching wise to be able to double that? Because obviously the raw speed was there, but maybe he didn't.
I think it's just a little bit more that he's out there all the time, and he is somehow. That 282 is surprising to me. I thought it was a good bit better than that, the on base percentage. But I think it's just his comfortability with playing in an everyday role. He's just getting into his game. He's an exciting player, and I have to admit, about 3 weeks ago, I threw up my hands at one point in time, and I said, I've seen enough of this guy defensively. I thought he was sloppy. He wasn't getting in front of balls. And I have to admit, since then, he has sort of not missed a beat, if you will, and is playing a really nice quality shortstop.
His defensive WAR is .7 right now, so he's definitely been on the positive side.
Yeah, and that was my big thing with him is I said at the beginning of the year I didn't want him playing shortstop because I didn't trust his defense. But like you said earlier, the defense has gotten better every game out there. Now, how much of that is on the analytics department, on the coaching, them coaching him up and making sure, like hitting him 300 ground balls in practice? How much of that?
Yeah, I'm sure they're working his tail off. It definitely rings of comfortability that he knows he's in the lineup. Mm-hmm. He's not nervous, and I'm sure they're working him hard. He just looks like he's much better prepared than he has been at any other time in his career up to this point.
Yeah. Now, Stan, I want to talk a little bit about Thursday's game. The game that the Orioles won 3-2. They were shorthanded. They had one guy on the bench, and that was Robinson Chirinos. They didn't have a starter for the game, so it was a bullpen game. And they go out there and they win a ball game 3-2. Now, look, these things are subjective here, but where do you rank that game as far as Orioles' best games of the season, considering what they were up against and what they had to do to get through that game?
I'm not a real big ranker.
Right. No, I get that.
Paul, I'm just not. I don't sit there and go, geez, let me think, is that the third best game?
Right.
It was a game that you fully expected them
to lose.
I mean, the game against Miles Mikolas, was he the one matched up with Spencer Watkins?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was a matchup that was almost like a lock, the other way for St. Louis to win that game. And it played out that way. And Thursday, when you hear it's going to be a bullpen day, you go, well, this can't end real well. And it was a gritty, gutty performance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To me, one of the strangest things, and I don't know what we're questioning Mike Elias and the timing of when they're going to bring up Adley Rutschman. I keep going back to the manager, and I'm wondering exactly what Brandon Hyde has to do to earn a 2-year extension.
Yeah,
and at what time you would give that to him? Are you making him go through some sort of gauntlet that that he has to worry about his future? I don't understand what they think they're going to get that could do better with what they've given him. And I also think it's sort of a rotten thing if the team were to get better and they just turn it over to somebody who might have a little bit bigger name and cachet.
No, I totally get that. And Stan, to answer your question, even though I think it was more of a rhetorical thing, I think that Brandon Hyde, maybe you offer him that extension if the Orioles' gritty play and their competitive play is an extended period. If they're still playing like this in June, July, into August, then I think you look at it and say, we got to keep this guy here and see what he can do when we get the rest of this talent up here. Because, look, the Orioles started 2020 12-8. At one point, they were 14-18, just like they were this year. They started last year 15-16. So they've had similar starts. You've got to continue to play this well. and not have this be, because they were 15-16 at one point last year, and then they lost 14.
Yeah, they were
straight games.
15-16 after the Means near perfect game out in Seattle.
Right, and then they went out there and basically immediately started the
Yeah, but
14-game winning streak.
they lost Means. They had Trey Mancini the second half of the year was running on fumes.
Yeah.
There's a lot. They'll pull players from him, and trade them like Freddie Galvis. That needs to all be taken into account.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. But you can't negate the fact that the Orioles had.
I mean, the bottom line? I'm not being as rhetorical with Mike Elias. I'm asking you guys: do you think they can find a better manager for what they are right now and what they hope to be?
Stan, that's a really tough question to answer because to this point, you haven't really had much to evaluate Brandon Hyde with. Now, do I think they're better managers out there?
But you've kind of known that all along.
Right.
The game plan was not like, hey, Mike Elias has got to win 80 games a year the next 4 years to earn an extension.
Yeah.
It's been 2 steps forward, 3 steps back when you trade in Iglesias. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step. When you trade away other people. It's. I think the guy warrants at this point in time I'm not saying a 5-year extension. A 2-year extension to me would seem perfectly the right thing to do to me.
I'll always say I've been under the impression that the manager on a losing team like this basically has very little influence on the win-loss record. That's kind of where I've always thought. And obviously managers like Buck Showalter can come in and turn a team like the Mets around and take them from a good team
way more talent
to right. Well, that's what I'm saying. And they can take them from a good team to a potential World Series team. But I think taking a team like the Orioles from a basement team to a moderately decent team is really something that I think a lot of people could do, because I think it's more about what the GM does, putting the right guys on the field, than what the manager actually has as far as influence goes. So I think if you put another guy in Brandon Hyde's situation, then he might do about what Brandon Hyde has. I'm not sure that there would be a massive difference there, but I don't necessarily support, getting good and then immediately throwing him out the door. I do agree with you there.
Well, I think you're getting closer to that decision time.
Yeah.
I think
that's a reasonable discussion to have right now. And to me, actually a little more important than whether Adley Rutschman starts Monday or Friday, or it sort of says what you're about.
Yeah, so. I think we'll have our answer to that question the second half of this year. I really do. We'll see when they have more talent up here. Now, Stan, you mentioned Spencer Watkins in that middle game of the series, and the fielding independent pitching. He had a 3.22 ERA going into that game, but his fielding independent pitching was 5.56.
Yeah.
And you kind of saw the writing. Again, we talk about reading the tea leaves here, and when you read the tea leaves, you saw a start before that, and he got helped out by some stellar defense. Otherwise, that game would not have turned out as well for him. And like you said, this was almost a lock. I saw this kind of a start coming from him. He seems to me to be the most susceptible pitcher in the rotation. Are his days numbered? Because I don't think the peripherals look good for him.
Well, he's been pretty much, when you have a guy who has an earned run average in 2021 of over 8 runs a game, you don't get real greedy and expect him to come in and sustain what he's been doing up to this point. He's a place saver to me.
Well, this happened last year too. Watkins came out and his first start was
he came
very
out
good.
And pitched fairly well the first couple.
Right, there were about 3 or 4 starts where Watkins was pretty serviceable, and then the wheels fell off, and I think you're seeing the exact same thing happen. And I don't know whether it's teams getting in the film room against him, or maybe just finding out a pitch that's maybe a little bit easier to barrel than another one, and that's possibly what's happening here. But it's
listen, it's made an interesting story that he went to a performance center, and was able to pick up 2-3 miles an hour on his fastball. But really, was that success sustainable?
No.
I don't know.
And maybe he ends up being one of those guys that you can deploy out of the bullpen for an inning or two that can get through a couple of hitters successfully. That remains to be seen. Now, Kyle Bradish, his last start was a revelation. 7 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 0 walks, which is an important number, and 11 strikeouts for the Cardinals. And I'll tell you, Stan, as impressive as he was in that game, the most impressive thing I saw from him was that 6th inning where he gets ahead of Yadier Molina 0-2, and he leaves the ball in the middle of the plate. He gets whacked for a double. Then the next batter, Harrison Bader, he gets ahead of him 0-2, leaves a hanging breaking ball in the middle of the plate. It gets whacked for an inside-the-park home run. And then what does he do? He goes out and strikes out the side, 1, 2, 3, right after that. Showed a lot of fire, a lot of poise out there to me. When was the last time that you can remember seeing a rookie pitcher be that good that quickly?
The only one that really comes to mind, because it's not like, the Orioles have had a ton of pitching that was really impressive over any length of time. I did a quick look back at Mike Mussina's first 3 starts, and he started against the Chicago White Sox on August 4th, 1991, and he pitched 7 2/3 inning and gave up 1 run and struck out only 1 batter, walked 4, and gave up a home run. And I'm pretty sure it was to Frank Thomas that tied the game, and then he was out of the game.
Oh, Frank Thomas made a living off Mike Mussina.
Yeah, he did early on. He owned Mussina early on. Then he came back 5 days later and had sort of the performance that Bradish had against the Twins. 3 1/3 innings, 11 hits, 5 runs. And then his third start, it was 8 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, and 10 strikeouts. That kind of sort of the first guy that came to my mind was Mussina, and it's kind of interesting. And I would say that Bradish has pitched better than Mussina did in his first 3 starts.
Yeah,
overall,
it's been something to look at. And then when you look at the potential of Grayson Rodriguez and DL Hall, and then what Tyler Wells done, we'll talk about Tyler Wells here in a second. It gets the juices flowing. It gets you excited to see what this guy can do for the rest of the season and for this team moving forward. And I do want to talk about Tyler Wells because, Stan, we talked about how it's kind of going to be his role all year where they want to limit his innings and make him kind of a piggyback starter. But his last 3 starts, he's gone 5 innings or more. He hasn't walked a batter in, I think, 5 consecutive outings. This guy is looking like, I don't want to say the real deal. I think it's too early for that, but he's looking like a legitimate piece at this point.
Yeah, he certainly is. And there's no question, I pontificate on a lot of things, on a lot of shows, and write about it, but I was dead wrong on Tyler Wells. I really wanted them to keep Zach Pop, and I forget who did they picked up 2 pitchers last year.
Max Soroller.
Right.
Max Soroller.
So one of them I was right about. I would still rather had Zach Pop in the organization, but Tyler Wells has clearly been a great find by Mike Elias and his team. That was a guy that they knew something about, and they sort of envisioned what he could become, and I'm sure he surpassed even what they thought,
Yeah, he's been nothing short of excellent out there.
Well, what's interesting is last year, it's funny because we all assumed this year, well, we got our closer of the future with Tyler Wells. It fit perfectly. They had a hole in their bullpen, and Tyler fitted, and it fit perfectly with what they wanted to do, where they could control his innings. And I have to give them a lot of credit for sort of not getting caught in that trap of saying, well, we got that hole fixed, and they clearly had some sights set on what Jorge Lopez could be in this role,
Yeah.
And that's been, so they've done a real interesting job at manipulating what they have there.
And Stan, with Tyler Wells, his innings limit, it's got to be more of a pitch limit than, because his efficiency, and he's been damn efficient the last 5
Yeah, I
years.
agree with you. It is and that's where if he's as efficient on his pitch counts, he'll pitch more innings. That's
And the coolest thing about him, look, no pitcher likes to walk guys, but he came out and he said, "I hate walking guys," so he just stopped doing it. He hasn't walked a guy since April 16th. It's been a month since it's absolutely fantastic.
That's
what we're seeing out of
fantastic.
him.
That's fantastic.
And then
one other name, not to the starting rotation, but were any of us talking about Zach? You follow the minors pretty well. Was this Felix Bautista really on our radar at all?
He was on mine.
So I saw Bautista when I used to work for the Ironbirds back like 4 years ago, maybe. I think it was 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. I was watching a game, and Bautista came in. I didn't know the name at all. The guy comes up there. He hit the first pitch. It's 99 on the gun. I was like, that guy's going to be in the big leagues one day if he's doing that.
Yeah, we saw him touching 100 a lot of times last year in the minors, and I was like, this guy's a future closer for this team if he can.
Where did he pitch last year? Was he at Bowie?
He started Bowie and made his way up to Norfolk. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I think he pitched at 3 levels last year. I think he started at high A and then went to Bowie, then went to Norfolk.
Well, he sort of, he was never on my radar as a guy to watch.
The big issue with him was his command. Can he consistently throw strikes? And to this point, he has. He's been a dominant to the point where the national media is talking about him. Yeah. He's been fantastic. Now, Stan,
when you have 100, 101, and then you're able to snap off speed stuff the way he can and command it, the hitter's helpless. When he's only seeing a guy like that once in a game, Yeah,
and it goes back to the pitching coaches and the analytics up and down this organization. They're all on the same page, and it's showing at the big league level. Now, Stan, before we let you go, I do want to talk briefly about your power rankings. You've got the Yankees at the top, followed by the Mets, the Dodgers, the Astros. I know you got a new one coming out on Monday. The Astros ride an 11-game winning streak. The Yankees have been playing solid baseball basically all year. Since they lost that series to the Orioles, they really turned it on. Are your power rankings, not to give anything away, but are they going to stay basically the same? What are you seeing from these teams?
I think the Mets have sort of stumbled a little bit of late. They're not playing bad baseball, but they've lost the last 2 times. Scherzer's been on the hill. The Dodgers now have an IL situation with Clayton Kershaw, and they're in the midst of a 1-4 week. So the Yankees will be number 1, and I may as well tell you, Houston's going to move up to number 2.
Yeah, they're playing lights out.
And San Francisco, which were my number 1 team the first 2 or 3 weeks of the year, they slid to number 8 last week, and they're 4-0 this week. So look for them to make a little bit of a bounce back.
Oh,
but I'll tell you, one of the most interesting teams, though, is the Cincinnati Reds. I don't know what happened. They've been
6
sunk,
of 8.
at the bottom of the barrel at 30 for me, and now they've won 4 out of 5 games, or 5 out of 7, something like that.
6 out of 8.
Exceedingly well. Yeah,
they were 3-22, and now they're 9-24. Like, how does that happen? But all right, Stan, always a pleasure. We will talk to you next week. Have a great weekend.
I gotta go, guys. I'm sorry. Bye.
All right. See you. That was Stan the Fan Charles, who has 2 great shows for you every week. Every Monday night, Stan and former Orioles pitcher Ross Grimsley visit with a different guest from the world of baseball. And every Thursday night, Stan and Gary Stein chat with a different newsmaker from the world of sports. This week, Stan and Ross caught up with legendary former Orioles catcher Rick Dempsey, while Stan and Gary chatted with Towson football coach Rob Ambrose. Find those shows under the videos tab at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or at PressBoxOnline.com/video. On Monday, of course, you won't want to miss it when Stan and Ross chat with Bowie Bay Sox assistant GM Phil Rye and broadcaster Adam Pohl. That and more from Stan the Fan this week. Zach, you have a new sounding off segment because we kind of stole your thunder, which I kind of figured we were going to do.
All good. No, I need to get turned up a little bit here. All good.
You're okay.
No worries at all.
You actually might be a little high now.
Rob Manfred made a questionable statement this week. I don't know if you heard about this.
I didn't.
But he said on May 10th, he said that the league wants to find more consistency for baseballs and that we need to find more consistency. And my initial reaction to this, before I even read the article, was MLB makes the baseballs. Like, they get to control. Why isn't MLB getting to control what goes into these baseballs?
Right.
Like, they make these are their decisions, right?
He's a blowhard.
He's saying we need more consistency in the baseballs. That is your job. Like, that is legitimately your job to control. So he goes on to say that, oh yeah, so we want pitchers to be able to have more grip on the baseball, and we want pitchers to be able to use the baseball like they were almost using, those sticky substances. He didn't name spider tack, but he said sticky substances, implying it. He said, "Oh, we want baseballs to turn into, easier to throw and higher spin for pitchers and all this stuff." And then he's saying that, "Oh yeah, last year we deadened the ball, all this stuff." And I'm going, then just make it more lively then. He's complaining so much in here about there's not enough offense and that offense is not, happening this year. But then he's also saying on the other side that, we're trying to make the ball better for pitchers. And it's just like it's a big, basically cluster of opinions and ideas in this article by CBS Sports here, by the way, by Matt Snyder, where Rob Manfred is saying all these different things about the baseball. And I'm just thinking the whole time, you control it. Make the ball more lively. Get baseball back to where it was offensively and where it should be offensively. Clearly what you did last year didn't really work. And then don't say that you're the one controlling it, right? Like this is all you, Rob. Like you shouldn't be complaining to the national media about how the ball is affecting what's happening in the game this year.
How about use those baseballs that the Mets claim you were using on Sunday Night Baseball?
Right, exactly.
Look,
the high offense baseballs.
Look, every time
I don't want to hear him blame other people for
every
this.
time Rob Manfred talks, all I think is, this guy is such a jackass. He just is. He's a blowhard.
Yeah,
he's a
not.
jackass. He's a mouthpiece.
Right.
He's clueless. He is absolutely clueless
Yeah.
to the game of baseball.
Yeah.
And like you said, you control what balls get made and what balls get used.
Right, exactly.
And pitchers are complaining these balls are slicker than ever. They
Right.
can't get a grip on them.
And his quote was, in response to that, we do want to give pitchers a ball with better grip. Again, more consistent without providing, let me use the phrase, performance enhancement associated with the crazy sticky stuff. What does that even mean?
Hey, dude, I play baseball, and we use official league size baseballs
Right.
every Sunday.
Right.
And I have no problem gripping the baseball.
No.
I have no problem driving the baseball.
I've never ever had trouble gripping a
So
baseball.
just go back to a normal ass baseball.
Right.
We don't need one that has a Super Ball
Right.
core, and we don't need one that has I don't know, a golf ball
And we
in
don't
the middle of
we
it.
don't need these conflicting statements from Manfred about what, offense versus pitching and all this stuff. Just make the baseball the way it was years ago where nobody had a problem with it. And then we'd just be fine. Stop deadening it. Stop making it more lively. Just go back to what it was originally. It's just a baseball, right? Like, you don't have to toy with it a million times. And then you're saying we do want to give pitchers a better ball. Well, you're controlling it. Like, my whole point here is that they're making these decisions, yet clearly they're not. And it makes no sense to me at all. This whole article is wild.
Use,
Rob.
Cal Ripken League baseballs
Okay.
in the league that I play in, and they're official sized. Go check them out.
Yeah.
See how they make their baseballs and make yours the same.
Right. He's saying basically, once we get to the summer too, that's another one of those. That the baseball's automatically going to become livelier, and I'm like, yeah,
That's true, but
to a
it's just-
degree, but
yeah.
it's like you're controlling this. Make a decision.
Offense is down. Let's liven up the baseball. Then two teams hit over 300 home
Right,
runs.
right.
That's too much. Let's deaden it. Hopefully the power doesn't go out.
Yeah, power.
Little- All right, folks, we had a power outage here at Pressbox Online. We're checking right now to make sure that we are still live. Zach, turn on that side computer as well. As long as we have the YouTube feed, Glenn can pull it. But we got to see it. That is, I've been here since December 2019. I have never seen the power go out in this building. So if you're still with us, we're checking right now to see if we're still good to
I
go.
believe we're currently live on YouTube. That
Okay,
is
so we are live on YouTube, which means we're
Yes.
live on Facebook. So we're gonna keep this thing rolling right along. Instead of let's go to our first break.
Okay.
Let's hit our first break. I'm gonna text Sam Dykstra and we're gonna tell him we got to push back a few minutes and we'll get this thing up and running again here in just a few minutes. Sorry for this, guys. Thanks for bearing with us. Just want to remind you that the Bat Around is brought to you today by the Baltimore Police Department. You can join a proud new generation of Baltimore police and make an active difference in your community. Start with competitive wages, the best in the state, and excellent benefits on day one. Join for good at bpdrecruit.org. It is the Bat Around.
Baseball is back, and so is the spring seasonal menu at Glory Days Grill. Start with the opener, flash-fried pork belly with our popular Korean No. 2 sauce, and take a bite out of the Crunch Burger, topped with home run sauce, white American cheese, and house-made chips. It also features irresistible options like a baseball-cut sirloin with blue cheese, grilled shrimp with garlic butter, and a strawberry salmon salad. And then there's the closer, the Cracker Jack Sundae with a waffle, ice cream, and Cracker Jacks. This menu will be gone at your neighborhood Glory Days Grill. GloryDaysGrill.com to find out more. Great food, good sports.
Hey guys, it's Paul Valley, and there's a new era of Glenn Clark Radio as I've joined Glenn every weekday from 10 a.m. to noon. There will be some changes, but what won't change is the absolute best daily discussion of Baltimore sports.
He's Coach Kevin Willard.
Glenn, thanks for having me, and great talking to you.
New Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Rashad Bateman.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
He is outfielder Cedric Mullins.
Thank you guys for having me.
Trey Mancini.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Mr. Marcus Williams, who's now with us.
Man, appreciate it. Happy to be on. Happy to talk with you guys.
Ravens kicker Justin Tucker.
Thanks for having me.
Adley Rutschman.
Absolutely, thanks for having me on.
John Angelos.
Thanks a lot. Good to be with you.
Ryan Mountcastle.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Marlon Humphrey.
Thank you.
Quarterback for the University of Maryland, Talia Tungavailoa.
Thank you guys for having me.
He is J.K. Dobbins.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
The great Ray Lewis.
Always good to be on.
He is Mr. Cal Ripken Jr.
Good chatting with you.
You can watch us live at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. And podcasts are available on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a wide range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Toyota to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And